Hello everyone and welcome to day 2 of Pro Tour Fate Reforged, coming to you live from the capital of the United States, Washington DC. I'm your host Rich Hagan, sitting alongside Ian Duke from Inside R&D and Mr. Rashad Miller over there at the far end of the news desk, bringing you all the action from a tremendous day 1 and a day 2 ahead. It is Super Saturday here at the Pro Tour. Why don't we get straight to the action and tell you where we stand overnight. Let's take a look at our master scoreboard for you coming in overnight. And we have 2 players at a perfect 8-0 record. Let's take a look. Austin Burcevic stands proudly at 8-0 alongside Seth Manfield. 2 players from the United States burn for Mansfield, Burcevic with Infect, and then your 7-1s. A stacked list that include 2 Italians, Roberto Esposito sitting there at 7-1, and Marco Lombardi at 7-1. You've got the Frenchman Alexandre Bonneau, Scotland's Stephen Murray, the Hall of Famers Zvi Moshowitz, Frank Karsten. You've got Jesse Hampton with his top 8 from a modern Pro Tour in 2011. You've got the World Magic Cup captain, Martin Muller of Denmark. Remember Dane Blast just at the end of last year. You've got Eric Froelich poised to make a run at 7-1, Jacob Wilson at 7-1, and right in the mix, Matt Oldeker and Kim Sang-Yun. Oldeker in his first Pro Tour. What a great opening day for him. So gentlemen, memories of yesterday. What's the one thing, Ian, that you're going to take away from day 1?
Well, I had a great time being in the booth for the first time yesterday. We saw 3 awesome rounds of Limited. I had a blast casting it. Probably my favorite was watching Jelger Wiegersma's crazy 9 dual land, 9 rare deck. And he 3-0'd his pod. That was just awesome to watch.
Yeah, that's pretty deep, it's fair to say. Now, Rashad, you spent a lot of yesterday on the floor of the feature match area. For people who are coming to coverage for the first time and people who've not experienced that environment, because it's unlike anything else in the world of Magic, what is the feature match area like?
Well, you know, it's surprisingly calm for what these guys are playing for. Day 1, it's really familiar because a lot of these players, they play each other. Everyone comes to the Pro Tour each time, and you know, they're like, hey, they're old friends meeting up again at another tournament, and it's very cordial, very professional, and it's not as stressful as you think it would be.
Okay, so why don't we take you through the schedule and the formats that are here at this Pro Tour. Rashad, walk us through the flow of the 3 days.
Well, if you weren't with us yesterday, we did start off with 3 rounds of Booster Draft, which is Fate Reforged and Concept here. That's followed by 5 rounds of our Constructed format, which is Modern at this tournament. Today, we're going to do the same thing. 3 more rounds of Fate Reforged and Concept here Draft, followed by 5 more rounds of Modern Constructed. Now on Sunday, we're throwing the draft decks out the window, and we're just playing Modern all day until late afternoon.
All right, and it's important to remember that the only players back today, here on day 2, have a 4-4 record or better. So we're into sort of a handicap race. 2 players at 8-0, around about a dozen at 7-1, 50 or so at 6-2, and they feel they're very live for top 8. 5 and 3s, well, they really need to win and win and win, and then get into Modern and win and win and win and win, and maybe at 12 and 3, then they get to look at the scoreboard and go, you know what, the top 8 is coming into view. All right, so Ian, in terms of the scoring, how does that work?
Yeah, so if you're just joining us for the first time or you're unfamiliar with how Magic tournaments work, each round the players play, they have an opportunity to win up to 3 points if they win their match. A loss, unfortunately, is worth 0 points, and occasionally matches result in a draw if they go to time. That's worth 1 point.
Yeah, so when we get to the very last round, it's possible that players will choose to draw. We call that an ID, an intentional draw, and that's because the 1 point they each get will get them into the top 8 the way they've done the math on the scoreboard. So watch out for that in round 16. If they're already at 36 or maybe 37 points, you may see players choosing to get that 1 point. Rashad, if they get to that top 8, or if they do well today, what's at stake? What do they stand to win? Are we in a land of candy and good times, or is there more at stake?
Well, there's enough money to buy as much candy and as many good times as you like. If you look at that, first place, $40,000, goes all the way down to $1,000 for 75th place. There is a $250,000 prize pool here. But that's not it. These players are trying to get pro points so that they can establish a pro level in this season, so that they don't have to try as hard to make it to more of these Pro Tours, and they get buys at Grand Prix and a lot of other advantages for actually acquiring these points.
Okay, well, I can tell you that the players are ready to embark on that path to more pro points, more cash prizes, and the big fame that comes with a Pro Tour Top 8. Ian's already mentioned, yesterday, Jelger Wiegersma went deep, deep, deep to go 3-0. Can he do it again? You will see his every pick right now. It's time to start the draft on day 2 of Pro Tour Fate Reforged.
Hey guys, welcome to the booth here in Washington, D.C. Marshall Sutcliffe. I've got Randy Buehler with me doing, well, exactly what we want to be doing. We're going to be covering a draft here. We get to watch Jelger Wiegersma draft. Let's take a look, though, at the table he's sitting at and see who he's sitting next to. Randy, what do you see here?
Yeah, this is Pod 2, and it is awesome. So
Stacked up.
Absolutely. Most of these guys are 7-1. Jelger is 6-1-1, and then the one guy who snuck in on 2 losses is Osman Ozgani. But yeah, look at this. Karsten and Jelger, both Dutch Hall of Famers. Efro is playing Magic as well as anybody on tour right now. Jacob Wilson is looking to run it back-to-back modern top 8s. Jesse Hampton has a modern Pro Tour top 8. Just everything you could want to watch on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, this is great. And so we're going to be watching Jelger, who's going to be fed by Jesse Hampton here in this first pack, and it's going to be interesting to see what Jelger's up to.
Oh, yeah.
I know
think
that you have a little inside track on what his plan is.
I was talking to Jelger this morning, and he said his draft strategy, and he gives props to Tom Ross for this. Tom Ross showed up on Pantheon.
The new guy?
Absolutely. The new guy on Pantheon was like, draft the lands, draft the rares. So yesterday, by the end of Fate Reforged, he had 7 dual lands in his deck.
Okay.
It's only possible to get 8. There's exactly 1 per pack. And then he wound up with 9 rares in his main deck. So I am very curious to see what happens here.
Wow. Yeah, I want to see if he sticks with this as well. So why don't we head down to the feature
Let's
match
do it.
area where Jelger awaits to draft Fate Reforged. All right, so here we are in the feature match area. And you can see we've got our spotters. This is going to be a draft viewer as well. And you get a look at Jelger, the Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I like the way Karsten is like the young kid Dutch Hall of Famer. You know,
The elder
Jelger sees
statesman.
Karsten's like, that kid might make something of himself someday.
All right, so here we are in our first pack. First pick, first pack.
Oh, the rare.
So what is the rare here?
Shu Yun,
Shu Yun,
the Silent Tempest.
Now, this is an interesting one, Randy, because, when I think of playing the 5-color deck, a card like Shu Yun actually isn't the type of rare that I would envision playing in it. Sure, you can do a lot of things with it, but it's a little bit better in a more streamlined, Jeskai or something like that type of deck.
Yeah, he's better in the prowess deck, but he's going to be good in whatever. And it's not like there's a great second choice in here. I mean, Sandstep Citadel is maybe the best white common, but I mean, with Jelger's draft strategy, which I guess is the Pantheon draft strategy, the Tom Ross draft strategy, whatever you want to call it, this Jungle Hollow might have been tempting to him. I don't know how high you have to take the lands to end up with 7 of them at the end of 1 pack.
I am curious. Now, he does take Shu Yun the Silent Tempest, though, so a solid start. And I'm curious to see also, if Jelger is willing to go off plan a little bit here and, go with what the cards are telling him, too. Wow, how about a Flame Rush Rider pick 2 here?
Interesting. What do you take here? So Sandstep Citadel is probably the best card. It's the multi-lang? No, the Jungle Hollow's in there.
The Outcast, you mean?
Sandstep Outcast, yeah.
Yeah.
Soul Summons is solid. There's a multi-land that doesn't overlap with his cards. I don't know. I have trouble taking the duels that don't overlap with any of the cards I've drafted so far, but I think that's probably just wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's between the Flame Rush Rider and the Sandstep Outcast. The Sandstep Outcast is generally quite powerful. It's probably the more solid pick of the two. The Flame Rush Rider has the higher upside to it.
Absolutely.
And
it is
he's
more
decided
powerful
to go
if you get
for
it going.
Yeah, he's decided to go for it.
I mean, the strategy is lands and rares. So he took the rare, right?
Yeah.
And it was an uncommon missing from that pack, by the way.
And it was Temur Sabertooth.
Yeah.
So a fine first pick if there ever was one.
Saltwater Cliffs straight to the front.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice one to pick up here because that's a type of dual land that he will likely be playing in his deck, regardless of whether he goes goes wide on the colors or.
Yeah, he could go. I mean, a blue-red prowess style deck would be great with the cards that he's drafted so far.
Totally.
I mean, and even that deck would want the Swiftwater Cliffs. So Swiftwater Cliffs seems like the easy pick.
Yeah, it looks like he really is hemming and hawing about Mardu Scout here as well. But I'm with you, Randy. I think the Swiftwater Cliffs is is a pretty clear pick, and he does in fact take it.
How long until we get a pick that's not a rare or a multi-land? What do you think? How far can we go?
Let's see. I feel like he's just going to draft a
Reach
good
of Shadows.
blue-red or maybe Jeskai
Jungle
deck
Hollow?
here.
Go Cunning Strike.
Whoa, a Sandstep Outcast. That's pretty
Jeez,
late.
the white
Fourth
is wide
pick.
open. That does seem late. And I mean, it's the third one that he's held.
Right.
Not that it was correct to draft any of the others, but it's certainly a signal that white appears to be open on his right, which he could. I mean, a sane drafter would wind up in Jeskai there with that Sandstep Outcast, I think.
Cunning Strike, though, is what he decides to take instead. Interesting pick. Cunning Strike's a decent card. I think that, most people have found it quite playable, but not something that you need to dedicate super high picks to at 5 mana. It's a little clunky.
It's a Tranquil Cove. Lotus Path Djinn. Wow.
Lotus Path Djinn.
That's got to be Lotus Path Djinn, right?
Absolutely, especially if it feels like he's quite dedicated to the blue-red plan here.
I mean, he's tempted by the Tranquil Cove. Those certainly seem like the two picks here. I mean, if he actually wound up in a blue-red 2-color deck, he wouldn't need the multi-lands.
No, Lotus Path Djinn is a super solid pickup for his deck here. That card has done a lot of work so far. Definitely one of the better blue commons in the set, and a nice addition to Jelger's deck. Card I'm curious to see if he picks up is a Teamer Battle Rage at some point here. That's a card that caught a lot of attention last week.
That's another Cunning Strike. Cunning Strike goes straight to the front of the pile.
Don't think there's much else for him.
Will of the Naga? I mean, it's okay in that black, especially in the blue-red prowess deck. But I certainly expect him to take Cunning Strike here. Got to move the multi-land to the front and think about it.
Look, when you've been drafting one way for a long time, you have that strategy. It's hard to let go. Jelger clearly has, though he keeps considering the dual land, or at least noticing it, right?
But, I mean, he's 2-color at this point.
Yeah, straight up 2-color, blue-red.
Smoldering Efreet. I mean, that guy looks bad. I mean, it's 2 mana, 2/2 with a drawback. But you know what? Being able to play a 2/2 creature on the second turn is very good in this format. I mean,
on the podcast, I called that your favorite card in the set.
My favorite card in the set?
Yeah, I did. I said it's your card. I said you can't get enough of them. Completely misrepresented you. It was great.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, but it is. You're right. Your point stands.
I mean, it's in an interesting spot. Like, the numbers are set up where it's in this interesting spot. It's not good, but it is what you need in a lot of decks. Jeskai Runemark, he takes a long look to. I like Jeskai Runemark.
I think so. I think that.
Third Cunning Strike, Jeskai Sage.
Wow, there's actually a lot of things. There's also a Goreswine in this pack that he could take.
Yeah, Sage is the quick pick.
Yeah, he snapped up that Jeskai Sage. That's the most solid card there. That Goreswine does have a place in this deck, especially if you are able to get those Teamer Battle Rages, though. He hasn't seen any.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get enough blue, like Crippling Chill, Force Away type things out of cons that you just clear a path for your 4/1. Second Smoldering Efreet, Reality Shift, and the Mardu Runemark is at least in consideration. He's looking at the 2/2?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like the Smoldering Efreet there. Just fill out the old curve.
Reality Shift does give you the ability to sort of downgrade their bomb rare into a 2/2.
It's true.
I think that's a decent card, but yeah, he wants the curve.
It also can be a decent tempo play if they're trying to use removal on your creature, like on their turn.
Sure. Well, there's a Battle Rage. There's a Warflare if you wanted to
Rage.
splash white. That's a very powerful card to have left in the pack at this point. There's also Bloodfire Enforcers, looks like what he's going with.
Yeah, which is an interesting pick. It's proven quite difficult to get that card active.
Yeah, you have to
can
get
see
both
it
an
there.
instant and a sorcery into your graveyard, which is not trivial.
It's not trivial. Though a 5/2 for 4 mana has that same attribute that, like we were just talking about with Goreswine, where sometimes you just Crippling Chill something out of the way and crunch them for 5.
So Dragonbale Monk and a Hero's Blade. He goes Hero's Blade. Does have the Shun Yun.
He does have Shu Yun. That is interesting. Though, outside of that Hero's Blade.
Jungle Hollow came back.
So tough. Oh, man.
Jelger's like,
he can't help
"What?
himself.
No."
He must take it.
I got to say, I mean, Jelger sat down with a draft strategy. It worked for him yesterday. When I chatted with him this morning, he talked about it as his draft strategy. You go in, you take all the lands, you take all the rares, you just build 5-color. Because what happens, and the reason that strategy has worked so well for Pantheon, and we talked about Austin Bursavich, who's one of the 2 8-0s overnight, uses exactly the same strategy. He's actually Tom Ross's roommate this weekend. Not a member of Team Pantheon, but like he's from Louisiana. He lives 2 minutes from Tom Ross. They're sharing a hotel room. So, same strategy of, if people are going to try to build decks, start their deck in Fate Reforged, there are no clan cards in Fate Reforged, and so you can easily wind up with a clan that nobody has actually moved into. You know, you can see Ankle Shanker take a complete lap around the table, and if you're the guy who's got the multi-lands to justify being able to just draft all of the rares that nobody else wants, you wind up with incredible card quality. Now, Jelger sat down with that plan, but you know what? That isn't what the packs told him to do.
No.
The packs told him to draft blue-red. I mean, the packs definitely told him to draft blue. He got the bomb rare there. I think, you know, he went in for a couple of cunning strikes, and, you know, his red cards are solid, and he's got this nice, tight little 2-color aggro prowess deck that I like a lot.
I think it's really good. Yeah, it's interesting. It's just, I mean, if he hadn't opened Shu Yun there, if it was a junk rare, you know, or some other multicolored thing, I think he'd be in a completely different spot, taking those dual lands that he saw. And I think he would be on his plan, but Shu Yun really does want a more streamlined deck.
And you called that as soon as we saw the card. He's like, this isn't great in his default strategy, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, this guy's been drafting and drafting well for 15, 20 years.
Right.
You know, he is legendary amongst Pro Tour players.
So we're moving on into pack 2 here, and here's his first pick. He immediately pulls a couple of cards. There's a Glacial Stalker, Tormenting Voice.
The rares are
What is
polluted.
that? Oh, a Mardu
Heartpiercer.
Heartpiercer. Hello, friend.
Yeah, it's a great card.
Wow, what a great pickup for his deck. That has to be on the short list of non-rares that he'd like to see there.
Definitely. Yeah, easy Heartpiercer. Anyway, yeah, Jelger's reputation as a drafter amongst sort of the pros is top of the charts. You know, if you're doing a side draft late at night, there is nobody you want on your side more than Jelger. Yeah, you pick the all-time side draft team. I think Jelger is on it, without a doubt. That's just
And that's only 3 slots.
3 slots. If you get to pick 3 guys for over the history of time, who do you want on your 3 versus 3 draft team in the history of the Pro Tour? Jelger's on that team.
That is you're saying a lot there, Randy. 3 slots to give. All right, he pulls Treasure Cruise and a free Weapon Master to the front.
Feet is getting shuffled in as well, Feet of Resistance.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't have the white splash yet. I don't know that
No.
it's worth adding the white splash to when you've got decent options in blue-red. I mean, the Weapon Masters also needs the white splash. So if he's not looking at the white splash, it's Treasure Cruise. But if he is, maybe the Feet. It's exactly the kind of trick this deck would want. He just doesn't have the mana for it right now.
Yes, if Feet was blue, he would windmill this, though. And his Treasure Cruise is also somewhat mediocre in this strategy.
Right.
It's a nice refill card,
Exactly.
but it isn't a high pick. And he actually ends up taking the Feet. I mean, he figures he has almost all the rest of this pack, plus another pack to pick up a couple of dual lands and just get a little white splash going.
Another Weapon Master.
Yeah. And a Bloodfire Expert.
There's Ionic Bonkin, but
There
now
is.
white is looking like a splash color. Like Bonkin is better than these other cards he's looking at, but you really want to play your Ionic Bonkin on turn 2, and he
Yes.
does not expect to have enough white mana to play that on turn 2. So Bloodfire Expert, not as powerful, but it fits his 2-color deck. He's looking to build a deck that can trigger Prowess a lot. He actually had the Adept up there too, the 4/2 Hexproof Prowess guy.
We saw Luis Scott Vargas do work with that at the
That guy's
GP.
underrated. You can do a lot of work. If you get, half a dozen, 6/8 prowess creatures in your deck, now your dozen instants become awesome.
Right, here's
Riverwheel Aerialist.
yeah,
Speaking of
Aerialist.
prowess creatures.
This is a nice top-end card for Jelger's deck.
Oh, yeah.
What else does he have options, though? There's another Treasure Cruise, another Whirlwind Adept there,
Right.
too.
It's got to be Aerialist.
It does
right?
feel like Aerialist, yeah. I mean,
I'd rather have Aerialist than Treasure Cruise on the top of my curve.
I
in this
think so,
deck.
too, in this deck, yeah.
He's looking at the cruise.
He really wants that Treasure Cruise. Having
Wow.
one cruise in your list isn't bad, but yeah, I'm actually with you on that one, Randy. I think Aerialist is a really nice curve topper for this type of deck. It's also very difficult to kill in this format with 5 toughness.
I mean, it
sometimes
does cost
even more.
6. I mean, I'm sure that's part of what he's thinking.
That is not cheap. Ooh.
Winterflame.
Hello, Winterflame. That's a nice pickup for Jelger here. A nice little gold uncommon directly on his 2 colors. And it also fits his strategy quite well of killing something, getting something out of the way, and triggering a bunch of prowess.
Is Aerialist just too expensive for the deck he's building?
It could be. This deck is quite streamlined.
I mean, his curve
absolutely
coming
could
out
be
of
the
Fate
case.
Reforged, he already had 3 2-drops that he was planning to play. He's going to come out pretty fast. He may just see the Aerialist as too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of 2 different camps for that type of card. There's some people that even in a streamlined deck like to have kind of a mana outlet.
one
for when
dragon
they
on
draw
top of the
too many.
curve, right?
Yeah, just the one. And then there's other people that just want it all.
It is Savage Knuckleblade.
That's the biggest of Knucks.
Good grief.
Yeah,
this is why you draft all the lands, because sometimes, oh, look, there's no Teamer drafter. Savage Knuckleblade. What are we, 5th pick, 6th pick?
6th pick, I think.
Savage Knuckleblade.
He's going to take Force away.
Yeah, he can't take it.
But he's just like, ugh.
Yeah, you really want to add a color for Knucks? When there's a Force Away that's a perfectly serviceable card in your colors?
No, Force Away is just too good for the deck, but you're
Big
right. I mean,
Knucks
that's
keep
the
going.
payoff. These are and we're going to keep seeing cards like that pop around the table here, too. Finally, a pack with just stone nothing for Jelger. All right, there's just guy's student, but
don't expect him to play that, but there's nothing
unlikely
there
to
for him.
make the cut.
Yeah, it's not even clear he's going to do the white splash, right? It's just the feat right now.
Yes.
No duels and just a feat of resistance.
Yeah, not even an Efreet Weapon Master, so.
Monastery Flock. Oh, Leaping Master.
There you go. Another 2-drop.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about the vanilla 2/1? If he can't activate Leaping Master, will he still be playing this card, do you think?
Marginal. You know, it's
you can
like,
play it without, and he goes Monastery Flock.
You absolutely can play it without.
I think he's worried
yes.
about not being able to activate it and didn't necessarily want to draft a vanilla 2/1.
Yeah, it's just you really want to have some helper spells for it. You know, he didn't end up getting the Jeskai Rune Mark in the first pack. What did he pick up here? That he
Tormenting
wielded the voice. Okay.
Yeah, it declines the polluted delta. There's a throttle in that pack still as well.
Yeah.
But Tormenting Voice triggers all his prowess and sort of fixes his draws. If he's mana flooded, he can pitch a land. If he's mana light, he can pitch a spell.
Sets up his Treasure Cruise.
Does
I mean,
set up his Treasure
this
Cruise.
is not necessarily
The other crews came
the other
back.
Cruise. I'd be curious to see if both of those make the cut. You know, if he runs Tormenting Voice in a pair of cruises, he's got quite a few kind of do-nothing type cards, you know, meaning
They
they're
trigger
not
prowess.
affecting the board. That is true. They do trigger prowess.
I mean, I would. The second cruise is the interesting one because that first Delve card is almost free. Wow, Weapon Master came back. Or he could take Whirlwind Adept. Like, he would play Whirlwind Adept.
Yeah, he's going to take it.
And he's like, all right, we're 2/3 of the way through the draft now. I have no white fixing. I only have a feat of resistance. So Whirlwind Adept over Weapon Master.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be straight up blue-red here. Didn't see any dual
I
lands.
don't know. He could still open like a Flying Dragon Kick and
Flying Dragon, yeah. Flying Dragon Kick. I like that. Also, Flying Crane Technique could be in the pack, but I like Dragon Kicks.
just get a picture of the visual.
I knew what you meant. All right, so there's the last card for Jelger. So he is now 2 full packs through the draft, and I have to say, looking good. Pretty disciplined draft here, staying just on the 2 colors, and they seem to be flowing pretty nicely, right?
Agreed.
You know, I wouldn't call that pack a home run, but it was a solid B, right? Just
Yeah, and you kind of feel like you're in the right colors when you get, what was it, 4th pick Winter Flame, 5th pick Winter Flame?
Yeah.
It's always a good sign.
It's also some interesting things to go along what you were saying earlier, Randy, about, you know, people settling into colors while they're still in Fate Reforged before they get to, you know, kind of where the big power hits in cons with the multicolored cards. There was a chief, I think it was a chief of the scale.
Sure.
It ended up going last.
In the back of Jelger's
It's
back.
like, what the heck, right? I mean, those are, like, if you play triple cons, people are like, oh, I took a chief first pick.
Mm-hmm.
That happens all the time. Maybe people aren't setting themselves up for the really good.
Well, it's hard to
two-color
predict, too.
pairs or
It's hard to get
clans.
signals about what's open because you never get past a chief in Fate Reforged. You never get past, you know, a Mardu-flavored gold card. It always feels like it's Mardu to me that winds up short. I think it's because people see red as the worst color.
Yes.
You know, and black is not one of the best colors, so. Crippling Chill.
There's a Bring
Bring
Low.
Low.
He's found
What
a
was the
Dune
rare?
Blast.
Dune Blast.
He's going to have to ship that
Yeah,
away.
that's a double splash. It's not doing that.
Oh, that's a triple splash.
Okay.
That's
Fine.
all the
I
colors
was thinking
he's
he
not
was
playing.
sort of white, but yeah, it is
Yeah.
the other 3 colors.
Again, though, you know, talking about going for the 5-color strategy, somebody's going to pick up that Dune Blast.
I don't think anybody's in the 5-color
No, I don't
strategy.
think so either, but there's going to be somebody who can play Dune Blast.
Right. There's an Obzon drafter. There's always an Obzon drafter.
Yeah. God, I'd love to be the Obzon drafter at this table.
Yeah, we'll get a view on the other side of this table when the guys at the wall watch Eric Froelich draft once we're done here.
Ooh, there's one. Mystic of the Hidden Way. Also
Or
a Jeskai
Jeskai
Wind
Windscout.
Scout. Yeah. Oh,
Or
and
Misfire
a
Weaver.
Misfire Weaver. Wow.
Got some choices. There's a Herald of Anafenza hanging out in the back of this is the rare, by the way. Whoever gets that Dune Blast is gonna be happy to also get past Herald.
You know, there's an Aerostorm in this pack too.
And Swiftwater Cliffs. Don't forget the Swiftwater
Wow.
Cliffs.
Like,
Although
this
at
is-
2-color, he doesn't need to prioritize the land because he's only 2 colors. He goes Wind Scout.
He went with the Wind
So
Scout. He
over the
knows he
Weaver,
can-
over the Mystic.
Yeah, he knows he can trigger prowess quite easily in this deck, and we'll be doing it often. The Wind Scout has a little bit less setup cost than the other cards in that pack, and he's going to get sort of the cleanest route to value with that Wind Scout.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, a lot of people would probably have that third amongst those blue evasive creatures, but not once you've got the blue-red prowess deck.
Right. And he very well
Hordling
may wheel
Outburst.
it. Oh, wow. Hordling Outburst is a great pickup.
Yeah, that's great.
here.
3 1/1s, and once again, a card that triggers prowess.
Yes. It's also just very powerful. It's funny because you read the card and it looks like, oh, that's pretty good. And you play it and it's like, oh, I made a board state.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's very, very good. I mean, I think
might have him tempted by a Trumpet Blast at some point too.
Yeah, it could be. It could be a nice finisher for him. He doesn't need that many creatures to make Trumpet Blast huge.
Right. Especially when it's giving everybody +3.
I think the thing people forget about Hordling Outburst too sometimes is that, I mean, you're getting 3 power and 3 toughness for 3 mana.
Mm-hmm.
Like, show me another card that does that that's not a rare. There's not many.
Right.
Ooh.
Pearl Lake. But if Aerialist is too expensive, I mean, I guess there's not as much competition in this pack. There's like Canyon Prowler.
There's a Summit Prowler there, but I got to figure actually that I would just take the Summit Prowler out of this pack. Like, I like Pearl Lake Ancient. It's pretty good.
It's also cost 7.
Yeah, it just feels like his deck wants more streamlined than that.
He goes Pearl Lake
He
Ancient.
took it anyway. I like
It does have that word prowess on it.
It does, and it does fit his theme. It is a great finisher. It really is. You can really get people with it. So going back to what we were talking about earlier about having that sort of I flooded out a bit outlet, well, that is a pretty nice one. Is that an Aerialist?
Yeah,
well,
but again, he takes Monastery Flock over it.
that slot has been now filled by the
Pearl
Ancients.
Lake,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have taken the first Aerialist, but this one is a lot less exciting once he's got a Pearl Lake.
Yeah, I think ideally you want 1. You either want 0 or you want 1 of these very expensive, 6/7 drops to sort of fill out your late
The
game
Dragon
punch.
slot.
The Dragon slot, yeah. Yeah, Pearl Lake will do it. I think I'd rather just have Aerialist in this deck, to be honest.
Over Pearl Lake?
Yeah, I think so.
War Shrieker? War Shrieker's nice. You're going to talk about a tempo play. You get to turn 4, you get to drop the 3/3, and then follow up with something else, a morph.
Yeah, he doesn't have many morphs is the problem, and
he
like he
looking at the
can't
Mentor?
cast his Jeskai Wind Scouts or anything like that off of it. He took the Mentor, yeah.
Wow.
Would not expect that to make the cut, at least not in the main deck, but it's an option to have for later. He can activate it in his deck easily, so yeah, there are matchups. And it looks like he did get the Leaping Master back. He's taking a look at...
Howl of the Horde?
Yeah. Not a card that would generally make the cut.
Vanilla 2/1? Vanilla 2/1.
I think that'll be a borderline card as well. You
Yeah,
know,
I'll be surprised. It feels like he's got enough cards that he doesn't need to play that
it does feel
without
like
the
that.
ability to activate it.
Are we
feels
going to Swift Kick here? It feels like...
Don't you just kill a Hooting Mandrills?
Yeah, kill Hooting Mandrills. What's the other card? Is it a
Bitter Rev's in
Deflecting
there?
Palm?
Yeah, Deflecting
you don't
Palm.
really
You're
care
not
about
playing
that. So,
Kills the Hooting Mandrills.
what did it ever do to you, Jelger? I was probably going to kill him. His deck doesn't match up super well against the Hooting Mandrills.
No, it
so.
blocks and attacks.
All right,
Disdainful Stroke.
Disdainful Stroke. And there's a Water Whirl too, though.
Interesting. He doesn't have a ton of bounce. He's, 1 Force Away, 1 Crippling Chill?
Yes.
Water Whirl's kind of expensive, but yeah, it's nice to have that effect.
It certainly is.
Super powerful card, and the
profound.
only drawback is the 6 mana cost.
What did he take there?
I don't know.
He didn't get that Swiftwater Cliffs, did he?
Oh, he got the Swiftwater
did.
Cliffs back?
Wow.
That's why it was so fast. Couldn't even get the camera on him.
Man, I thought that's what it was, but I'm like, there's no way he
That's
got
great.
that back. So now he has 2 of those, 2 perfect
In a
on-color
2-color deck,
duels.
yeah.
Oh, BDM weeps a tear here.
Secret Plans
Secret
going all
Plans
the way
with
in the back.
3 cards left in the back.
Whirlwind Adept is perfectly reasonable too. Like that will be under consideration to make the cut.
Sure.
Summit Prowler.
Yeah, there's the Prowler. All right, well, he got it back anyway, so in it goes
Sure.
into his pile, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that make the cut at all.
Yeah, it seems like he's going to have choices. He's going to be able to decide, does he want the Adept? Does he want Prowler? Does he want Leaping Mastery? He's going to have more cards than it seems like he requires to get to 22, maybe 23 spells.
Totally. This could be a 17 lander
Could be a
depending on if
17
he
lander.
plays the big drops. But, you know, the interesting thing about these decks, too, is that he did end up with quite a few playables, and he can adjust how he wants this to play out based on curve. He can make it much more aggressive low end and cut the high stuff. If he finds himself in a matchup, though, where he feels like that isn't going to get the job done, he can transform his deck to a much slower version with a much better high end, too. So Jelger will probably pick what he feels is the ideal configuration to start with, and then he'll adjust it as he sees what his opponent's doing and what kind of removal they have. And you know, is he facing the walls Sultai deck, or is somebody trying to race him? You know, these are the type of things that he's going to be looking at as he builds his deck. But I got to say, overall, I'm pretty impressed. Like he was disciplined. You know, he took Shu Yun first, and he did let that just sort of dictate the whole rest of his draft, and it worked out pretty well for him too.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to watch the Hall of Famer do his thing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is a guy who's drafted sort of every strategy across every format, sat down with one plan, but you know what? Sometimes you open the first pack and plans change.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was great
He drafted
too.
a great deck.
So you had a chance to talk to Jelger a little bit, and you got a feel for what he wanted to do. And, you know, as people, you and I who draft all the time, you know, when you can see from the hand language of him pulling those lands up, like, should I have done it? Why am I passing another one of these duels? And, you know, they sort of just keep going away.
Yeah, and then Savage Knuckleblade comes through in pack 2, and he was like, oh, this other world, I'm drafting this Knuckleblade. But
right, and he did have to give up some things, and you know, I think that is one of the things that, you know, if you're going to do a draft today, for example, and you wanted to try out the strategy, you know, we had a time in triple cons where people were drafting 5-color all the time, including me.
Sure.
And I thought, you know, before that was there, it was quite good. And I think that we might have one of those little spikes here relatively early in this.
Yeah, it's almost like a market prices thing, right? If nobody is valuing the lands and the ability to draft those 3-color gold cards, you want to be the one guy who actually does scoop up all the lands and scoop up all the gold cards. But if everybody switches to doing that, it just won't work as well.
Right.
Right now at this Pro Tour, I think there's not a lot of people doing it. And so, you know, Team Pantheon in particular has just made a healthy living with that draft strategy.
That's right. All right. Well, why don't we send it back to the news desk, and Richard Hagan, when we come back to the booth, though, we'll have live draft action here from Pro Tour Fate Reforged.
All right, thanks very much to Marshall and Randy down there in the booth calling every card of Jelger Wiegersma's draft. Now, it wasn't 9 lands, 5 colors, 9 rares. It does seem like it was pretty good. Now, the table is stacked with big names, but also some inexperience. We're going to head over and find out what went on in every card of Eric Froehlich's draft, and we're going to do that in the company of Rashad Miller and Ian Duke.